Good morning and welcome to this program. It is the dialogue. Every Saturday morning we sit to look at issues that made headlines through the week and we internalize them. My name is Simapolo and I welcome you to this weekend's edition from wherever you are watching from. And we are concluding another week, a busy week, and concluding a month of April. We'll be looking at what is happening in Parliament. We know that the budget process is coming to an end, and again we'll be looking at events that happened through the week. Over the weekend, the Rwanda President Paul Kagame made a private visit to Uganda, and this visit comes after 4 long years, and it looks now to end the simmering tensions that have been running for decades between the two neighboring countries. That is the question probably we'll be looking at, whether this visit marks the end of these bilateral tensions across, between these two countries. Paul Kagame was hosted at a dinner in State House at an invitation from the Command of Land Forces, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who was celebrating his 48th birthday last weekend. And we remember how the tensions led to the closure of borders, and of course the trade relations also suffered either way on either side, and that is another issue we'll be looking into. And again, looking across the border, we commiserate with our brothers and sisters in Kenya upon the passing of the 3rd president of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki. The state funeral was held yesterday in Nyayo Stadium in the capital Nairobi, and he's expected to be laid to rest today in his rural home in Nyeri County. And in the spirit of the East African community, we commiserate and stand with our brothers and sisters across the border. But again, like I said, in Parliament, the budget process is still moving. This week, the Minister of Finance presented a statement on the draft proposals in that budget for the next financial year 2022-2023, and I'm talking about the 47.2 proposed budget, which, according to the Ministry of Finance, which will focus on socio-economic transformation and mainly looking at the parish development model and the enhancement of salaries for scientists to possibly improve the economy that is actually suffering now. And to discuss these and other matters, we have Patrick Katabazi. Is an economist and a policy analyst, and will be joined later in the program by Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimire. He's a resident panelist here, and to, of course, kick off the show, Patrick, you're welcome to the dialogue this morning.
Yes, good morning, Aporo, and the pleasure is mine. And good morning once again to our esteemed viewers and listeners.
Good. One comment about the passing of Mwai Kibaki. He was eulogized as a statesman, a great economist, and one who, of course, worked for his country's development. Despite all that happened, you remember the 2007 debacle where thousands of Kenyans died, and I looked at Raila Odinga making a speech saying that eulogizing Kibaki as a man who will be missed and who passionately worked for his country.
Mwai Kibaki was an exceptional man. He was extremely very bright. You remember he's one of the students who got a first class in economics.
From Makerere?
From Makerere University. And he went ahead to become the Minister of Finance in the Republic of Kenya, and later on becoming its president. During the Moi era, I think there was a lot of suppression of rights and freedoms, and there was little participation in the international community by Kenya. But when Mwai Kibaki became the president, doors were opened, and most of the big projects that we see in Nairobi and other counties is attributed to his openness and his astute economics-related interventions that have put Kenya at a very, significant path to development. Remember, the Kenya we have today is already into the lower middle income status. Yes. But that is attributed to the policies and programs that the government of Mwai Kibaki put in place. I think he was also a very unique man in many ways, running an election, being declared the president, accepting a peace deal, working with the nemesis, and not having any trouble with a competitor. In my view, is also a very great achievement. It tells you so much about somebody who is amiable, somebody who focuses on the future rather than the past. I know of governments, for example, the current government in Kenya, where the president and the deputy president do not see eye to eye. Yet they campaign on the same ticket, they were on the same party. But here you have a president with mandate, duly sworn in, accepting to work with a nemesis, and working for 5 years very, very well without any crisis.
Really?
So I think for me, the progress that Kenya has registered, in my view, should be credited to the nature of this man. And it is not surprising that when Moi signaled that he wanted to retire, it was not surprising that all people rallied, looked around and said, okay,
here is Kibaki.
Yes, we can only ally with this man, with this old man, Kibaki. So he seems to have been a very nice man, in my view. And it's just that as human beings, there's nothing so much we can do.
Yeah.
You live, and at some point you die. And it's sad that this is his time to leave the center stage. But his stay on earth has been extremely rewarding.
So leaving alone the politics of what happened between him and Raila Odinga, Kibaki really is the man who made Kenya what it is today, in economic terms.
Yes, in terms of spurring economic growth, I think he did a tremendous job. We cannot say that other people were sleeping. Yes, he built on something. I think that should also be underscored. But the important point being made is that when he became the president, he embraced openness to new ideas. And that's how we see highways coming in Nairobi. And that's how we see real estate taking a leap in Nairobi. And one can safely say that he significantly contributed and built on the foundation that was there to make things much better by embracing modern thinking about how economics should run. And it is also not very surprising that one of the tools that Kenyan economists have embraced, we call it bottom up, where you have very strong social protection regime that started in Kenya at the time, where vulnerable people get supported, where people get encouraged to participate in economics at the lowest unit, devolution, and the rest of other things that came up. I think for me, the late Mwai Kibaki opened eyes to many people about the realities that we deal with in African economies, and that is promote private sector development like we do in Uganda, but also identify fault lines in that system, because it is apparent that no matter how much money you give to people, there are some people who, by the nature of their circumstances, cannot compete favorably. You can distribute money evenly at all Ugandans, but within 1 month, you will have a few Ugandans carrying the bunch of the money and others who are not. So getting a balance between forces of demand and supply with other state interventions in the lives of the people was very helpful. And it's not surprising that Kenya is in lower middle income status.
I'm surprised attributing the economic growth of Kenya to Chibachi. And I relate it to what actually happened this week in Uganda when the inaugural Mutebire public lecture was held at Makerere University, and the PS Ramadan Gobi saying, actually eulogizing Mutebire as the grandfather of Uganda's modern economy. And when I relate the two, you look at this side, Mutebire is gone, then the other side, Chibachi is gone. Then I ask you, are we losing the gems of those times?
Yes, of course, generation come and go. That's really a fact. I think Mutebire was a very great economist, but I have disagreements with him in many ways. That for a developing country, purely relying on forces of demand and supply can be very dangerous. You have to have a match and mix. Yes, promote private sector-led economy, but at the same time, make sure that you have state presence in the lives of Ugandans. Where people fall off the forces of demand and supply, then you have state interventions. Because when you don't do that, you create a scenario where you have people becoming extremely rich and others becoming extremely poor. So I think the structured adjustment programs that were spearheaded by him and other World Bank IMF reforms, I think some part were very good, but you realize that, again, the processes, the way they were managed, the privatization bit of it, well, we could have made some gains in that area, but there are some state enterprises, for example, that needed to have stayed in the hands of Ugandans, such as, of course, the Uganda Commercial Bank, Uganda Transport Company, and many others.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think he was a great man, Mutebire, so to say. Mwai Chibachi, that's a golden age, possibly, that is going by. But people should have hope that we are there.
Yeah.
That we are there, and the other people are coming up. The world is not remaining static. We are now in the advanced stages of the computer age. Some of these chaps we are talking about, we are still in analog system. And the drivers of growth then were factories. Right now, you have a mobile phone application, Twitter, which is bigger than the size of Uganda's economy. Our GDP estimate of last year was about 37 billion. 37. Here you have Twitter, that is at 44. Just a mobile phone application where people go there, say hello to each other, and that. So the modern version of economics must then adopt and shift from saying we must have factories in order to develop, but rather to invest in innovations and science, to create new ideas that can become a hallmark of our development. So, and I think this is our time now, but we thank them for their contribution.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And of course, like I said, Patrick is an economist and a tax policy analyst. We, of course, be looking at the proposed budget for the financial year 2022-2023. But talking about Mwai Chibachi's death, we again commiserate with our resident panelist, Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimire, lost his dad, and he is here with us. Honorable, sad news, but we'll come back.
Thank you. Of course, we pray for my late father to rest in peace, and we just want to thank God for the life that he gave him. because it touched us, and indeed we carry his values. He always emphasized to tell the truth at all times, and emphasized hard work at home, and encouraged us to love God, encouraged us to carry on with education. So, and I think the 115 years that God gave him were a big blessing to us, the children and also the community members. You needed to have come for the burial and see thousands that came to see him being arrested at his home in Kagadi. We
115 years.
Yes.
I looked at more than 100 grandchildren.
Yes,
What a legacy.
he had 16 children, of whom 12 are alive, and 4 are dead. Then 158 grandchildren, 128 great grandchildren. He had 32 great grandchildren, and 12 great grandchildren.
That's amazing.
Yes.
May his soul rest in peace.
Eternal peace.
Honorable, welcome back.
Thank
We're briefly looking at the legacy of Chibachi and relating to Mutebire's legacy here. A public lecture was held this week. Briefly, 1 or 2 words on Chibachi's legacy. A politician, an economist, and now he's being eulogized as a statesman, a great statesman.
I think both of them share a common training school, Makerere University. And they belong to that group, I think, that had a background of socialism. It shaped largely their thinking, although Mutebire's thinking subsequently changed tremendously to be a market-led, and he led the structural adjustment of this country, which some people hail. But of course, when you look at what we lost, at the end of the day, you say, why was Mutebire born? Because if he presided over such a thing, where companies or structured adjustment, that is reducing the size of government, but also divestiture, selling, privatization. Where companies, government entities were being sold for 1 shilling at almost a loss. Even those ones that were actually doing well, they were sold. He literally presided over the people who had come from the bush, who had to reward themselves. Although it was seen as an international, as a donor-led program, here it was rewarding those who had just come from the bush, because that's when we see them getting many government companies at a giveaway price. But nevertheless, we we have fundamental issues that hold them together, that they held the economies of their respective countries together. And for Kibaki, he was a chief executive. For Mutebire, he was not a chief executive.
Yeah, true.
So the success, maybe if he was a chief executive, we would have had a much more success here. Because I see him at some point struggling with the chief executive of this country. I am not going to give you money. You are wrecking the economy at some point. Those things. But here Kibaki, for him, he had the opportunity to be a chief executive of a country and give directions that we are going to put money in this priority area. Unlike Uganda, for him, he put priority areas to areas that could actually transform the country. For us, the area where perennially we have put emphasis is government and security. Security, we have put much more money than we expected in the name of saying we want to be stable. We want to be stable. Konyi became a threat, at some point stopped being a threat. ADF became a threat, at some point stopped being a threat. Again, it is reimagined as a threat. So, and you ask yourself, all this money that we have invested in the security, is it worth it?
Okay.
This is where Kibaki scored highly. He put much more money in the education. He put much more money in the socio-economic transformation of the ordinary person. When you see the agriculture in Kenya is doing far well than what we have here. We have good soils, but we are not producing, our output per acreage is not the best. And that's where
Honorable, as a politician, just one comment. After Mutebire and Kibaki are gone, and we hear what is happening in the Ministry of Finance, people complaining about these agreements being signed, and fair agreements being signed. I don't know if that would have been, if the case would be different from what we see today, if actually Mutebire or Mutebire was in charge of the affairs at the Ministry of Finance and probably Bank of Uganda.
Well, it is a long time ago since Mutebire was in charge of Ministry of Finance. The biggest part of his life, we have seen him as a governor, Bank of Uganda. Maybe he would have done less as a governor, Bank of Uganda, if this agreement, because he would have also learned it the way many of us have learned about it. Because it was signed by Minister of Finance. I think we should give Ugandans at some point, if we who are in the media, treat and discuss exhaustively about this agreement. Government is making an agreement. What is it saying? At least those days they were saying they had factories which belonged to their name. Which coffee garden do they own in this Uganda that belongs to the government of Uganda? They are literally selling my garden in Busoiga. They are selling my garden in Kagadi, and selling peasants' gardens in respective parts of the country, and saying we must determine at what price you are going to sell and whom to sell to, which is contrary to the entire economic theory that we are following. We are following the theory of market, the market-led economy, forces of demand and supply. But to relate them to what is going on, I mean to Mutebire, certainly as I mentioned, Mutebile maybe would have advised.
Yeah.
Maybe by this time would have made a call and said, this is not a pro-people agreement, so, and I think it is likely to affect us.
Okay.
So the earlier the government abandons it, the better.
The better.
For the other side, Kibaki, we want to thank him. We see him handing over power after serving 2 terms
To Uhuru.
to Uhuru. And you know, although in Kenya, when you are a head of state for 2 terms, you can easily even win the 3rd term, because you have already almost fixed power centers. Power centers have accumulated a lot of resources. He chose to say, let me take a rest, a break, like my predecessor, Moi,
Daniel
Arap Moi. And
but what happened when he was winning the 2nd term may have played out in his decision to relinquish power after that.
No. Of course, there was a lot of political like
bloodshed.
2007. And it was uncalled for because I think tribalism went beyond what we would ordinarily see as a mobilization tool in the political circles in Kenya. And it went beyond the election time, and the people were injured. So that one will go behind him in his legacy as a negative thing. But that will not wipe away the positive contributions that he made to the development, the transformation of Kenya, including handing over power. Handing over power to his
Patrick,
successor.
Quickly, you alluded the fact that even when these gems of their times are going, that there is a new crop of economists that is coming up, and I want you to relate it to what is happening now. I talked about those unfair agreements that are being signed, being called unfair, referred to as unfair. Really, do we miss those economics? I mean, those economists of the likes of Chibacha and Mutebile today?
Yes, my friend Honorable, sorry for the loss of your dad. At 105 or 15?
15.
115 is massive. Some of us, if we could get 70, that certainly would be a life well lived. So that said, I think every generation has its own shining stars. And I think Mutebile and the late Chibachi were the stars of their generation. But again, we must understand that we are seeing that generation being phased away. We have a new generation in place, but again, we also have very unique circumstances that were not there at the time. For example, when Mutebile was at the Ministry of Finance as a PSST, I don't know how many offices at the Ministry of Finance had computers.
Yeah.
It could be possibly one or even none at all. Now, every kindergarten has children that can access a computer, tablet also. Over 20 million Ugandans access a phone. A phone is more or less like a computer in one or the other. So we are now in a digital age, and a lot of things have happened. A lot of things are yet to happen. And the exit of these fine gentlemen should now provide space for the new age of economists and leaders to emerge and take on the challenges that we have in our hands. And I think we have a number of able people in this country who are ready to take on the mantle. And we have young leaders as well who have grown up in the new digital age and who are very well blessed with this kind of developments. As you know, when Mutevile exited Ministry of Finance, they were still using checks. You had to line up at the Bank of Uganda to go and get a check for every payment, including if you supplied beans to Kabale district local government at the time. The check would be sent there, and sometimes it would take so long. As it is now, Minister of Finance, when Dr. Ezra Suruma became the Minister of Finance, they put in place, I think, the Financial Integrated System, IFNI system. Now, all the payments of government
are digitally.
Are processed digitally. Government now has one single account, the single treasury account, where all payments pass through. And for me, that's an example of how things have evolved. And I strongly believe that we have great men, as we have already said. They are gone, but the future is bright that we have people who are going to take on the challenge.
Thank you so much, our viewers. This is The Dialogue. Patrick Katabazi is an economist and a tax policy analyst. And we have Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimire, the Member of Parliament for Buyaga West, resident panelist, looking at matters and issues happening in our country today. We may now shift gears and walk away from the death of Mwai Kibaki, who will be buried today, and come back to Parliament, where the draft budget is being worked on. Of course, the 47.2 trillion budget, and the theme for the next financial budget: full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, and digital transformation and market access. And like I said in the introductory statements, the priorities in this budget include the economic growth strategy. The key priorities is the parish development model, enhancement of pay for scientists, and operationalization of new administrative units. Briefly, Patrick, just in one or two statements, give us your view on the outlook of this budget.
Yes, overall,
amid harsh economic times that we are in today.
Yes, overall, our national budget is for the next financial year is going to be at 47.2 trillion, and that is from about 45 trillion. So we have about a 3 trillion and there are about increment, about 6% increment on this year, this financial year budget. We expect to collect about 25 trillion from Uganda Revenue Authority, and programs of government, the ones that are being used right now under the program-based budgeting, are expected to consume 30 trillion. So you have Uganda Revenue Authority expected to collect 25 trillion, but then you have ministries and agencies of government going to spend 30 trillion. So what it tells you that if we can collect 25 trillion, but our budget is 47.2 trillion, then we have about 22 trillion that we are going to borrow to finance our budget, domestically and then externally. It also means that part of the money that we are going to borrow shall include borrowing to pay debt. And you might have heard from Minister of Finance that now our debt to GDP has already crossed the threshold of 50%, which is the standard the world over, I think, for a country like us, and also part of the agreement for the East African Common Currency Convergence Criteria. So it tells you that beyond where we are right now, we are going to be distressed, financially distressed as a country. Because here we are using GDP as a measure of growth. So here GDP, meaning that if you get the value of every good and service produced in this country, that is Uganda's worth. And I've already told you that one mobile phone application called Twitter is now bigger.
Yeah, bigger than our national budget.
No, it is 4 times bigger.
4 times.
If we are to go by Elon Musk's bid that he submitted to purchase that mobile phone application. So I do not expect the budget for next financial year to be significantly different from this budget that we have, save for the fact that in the next financial year budget, we have the parished model embedded in there with a budget of 1 trillion, where the focus is going to promote planning, budgeting, and implementation of development activities at a parish level, where the each parish is going to have 100 million for financial inclusion, among many other pillars that have been talked about. I think for me that's what I see as a fundamental shift in our planning trajectory. And the only, of course, challenge that we see is that my friends, Honorable Barnabas and others, I've not had his views on this one very well, but the category where he comes from are marketing this program as where government is going to send 100 million for PDM. People, yes, for people to come and collect. So it is sounding more on the money bit, but very silent on other pillars, which are extremely important, like production and marketing, mindset change, and many other. There are 7 pillars. So what I would love them to do is to concentrate on other pillars as well. Because even if they put money at your circle and you go and collect it without participating in production, without having what you've produced linked to the market, and you getting income, it becomes extremely difficult for you to have your life or your livelihood improved. So the budget as is, we shall still see still challenges, the one that we are seeing right now. You will still see problems in the health sector. You've seen the issue of recruitment of health workers. We'll still see problem with the salaries. I know they have made promises that people are going to have their salaries improved. That's also a sticky area that I see that is going to happen. We still see most of the services, in my view, remaining the same. But my hope is that the parish model would be a welcome intervention and that would have things happen differently. I know some people disagree. They say, okay, you know, government brought Myoga, brought Ntandikwa, brought this and that. Things have not worked. But I have always said that one of the biggest constraints at our lowest local levels is inability for money to move there. Because there are no drivers, there are no active drivers for money to come at the lowest level of government in our villages. So even if actually, from the economic point of view, even if they sent money, 100 million to my parish, and money is shared, people, and as long as the people in that parish are the ones who have shared that money, even if for no work done, I can assure you that money would have, if it came
an impact in
yes,
any way
if
or
it
another.
Came consistently for 5 years, and it is shared or eaten, as people would like to call it, at that parish level, that money would have a significant impact on the economics of that parish. The only challenge again that I see, our Ugandans are very wise. They know that money is going to come at the parish. They are going to identify enterprises that are likely to benefit, and some ways people are going to come and masquerade, present themselves, and tap into that money, and you find actually that money is not even going to be spent in the parish. That would be very absurd. But if the concept remains the way it is, we encourage people to participate in production. Those who want financial support or capital, they can be linked and they can get that capital. I think if we do this consistently for some time, we are likely to see shops springing up in our remote communities. We are likely to see other associated services coming up. And now what our honorable members of parliament need to do is to start asking questions. Okay, yes, we are talking about production and marketing. That's something that has an element of agriculture in there. we are talking so much about financial inclusion where 100 million is going to go to the sub-county. What is inside that package of production and marketing?
Okay.
What is in this package of mindset change and community mobilization? What is in this other pillar that is talking about innovation and many other things? Because it is that will make us understand whether this program is going to succeed or not. Talking about money alone may not be the magic. May not be the magic. But, and we would want to see all the ministries and other departments of government that have a connection with the 7 pillars being very active. And in doing so, making sure that the program that we're talking about will be able to realize the benefits that are set forth. So, significantly, the next financial year's budget has one possibly new thing, the parish
in PDM. In just one statement, from the layman's point of view, what is the logic behind drawing a bigger budget, bigger from the current financial year's budget, when actually we have constraints, like you said, we already hit the ceiling, the debt ceiling. I looked into the statement of the Ministry of Finance. They are talking about the inability now to impose new taxes, that will not impose new taxes. Then again, there has been reduced support from donors. What is the logic from that layman's point of view?
Yes, we know the world right now is stressed. You have the war in Ukraine that has constrained many countries. And many countries we are relying on import from Ukraine and from Russia, petroleum products, wheat. And now there is a paralysis because of what is happening, the sanctions, the conflicts, and the rest. But then you also have the big impacts that were brought forth by the coronavirus pandemic and the lockdowns that we saw. So most of the donations that come through generally used to come because those countries have surpluses or because those countries are doing very well. So, but now they have to look inside and see what they can be able to do for their own citizens. That includes cutting the budget. One clear-cut example is Indonesia, in the press statement they made yesterday, banning exportation of crude palm oil. And you know, for example, cooking oil and soap relies on crude palm oil, and we import about 83% of it from Malaysia and Indonesia. So because of the problems that are also happening in their own economies, they said, oh no, we are pausing.
Then why should we increase our budget?
We need to first look inside and sort our problems. Now, so when it comes to our side, it explains why the donations are likely to drop. It also explains, again, why we must also be frugal. The question of increasing our budget is that I think that in Uganda's circumstances, we have remained overly optimistic. And we have not changed our ways.
We may not be affected by...
We are affected and we know it, but we have remained overly optimistic. We have not adjusted to the fact that we have had a crisis after crisis and that we're headed for tougher times. You still see travel abroad being budgeted. You still see medical treatment abroad being budgeted. You still see some agencies of government, when you open their ministerial statements, they have subscriptions for gym.
Isn't it that
for their
bad economics?
Yeah, it is bad economics, so to speak. We are still paying for luxury. You open up a document and you see that money is being allocated to pay membership to a club.
Really?
For a staff. We still see organizations that have executive directors and others having about 4-3 cars parked in their compounds. So we have not looked at the situation that we are in for COVID-19 and the current circumstances to be very frugal, to budget very effectively. We are still budgeting like as usual, as if nothing is happening. And we still see the cost of public expenditure going up. Appointments are never going to stop. Of course, Parliament has equally expanded. I do not know what they will have to say, but possibly because of the increasing fuel prices, maybe they are going to also increase their salaries and the rest. And you have heard also that other people have increased their salaries as well. So this is not possibly, in my view, the time. We needed to first pause a bit, isolate priorities, put money in those priorities, and then we observe and see what happens before we jump in to increase salaries, to increase public expenditure, when we still have devastating effects of coronavirus, which, by the way, in my view, I think we have not yet fully seen. But then we also have these international community developments that have a devastating effect on our economy. We have these rising prices that are not likely to go down soon. Yes, in the medium term, because some of the problems are beyond our control. But again, some of these have a spillover effect on the most aspects of the economy. Something like if oil keeps at 100 or more than $100 per barrel, you don't expect the pump price in Uganda to be below 5,000. And we are not producing oil. We are still a landlocked country. So these are some of the things that we expect. So we should be seeing a government response where money is shifting from these luxurious
to priority
areas, but also in some way cushioning people against some of the risks that we see that are coming up, where people have lost jobs, where companies have shut down, now where people are experiencing skyrocketing prices.
Thank you so much, viewers. This is the dialogue. Patrick Katabazi is an economist and a tax policy analyst. And we have Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimiri, the Member of Parliament representing Buyaga West in the 11th Parliament. I request that we go for a short break. We are still looking at the priorities in our proposed budget for the next financial year, which is now before Parliament. And when we return, Honorable Barnabas will be presenting his views on this budget. Katabazi says that even those not so priority areas have been catered for in this budget, which is actually very, very unfortunate. Let's go for a break. When we return, the dialogue is here on Sol TV.
Sol Television, Femunyo.
Welcome from the break. This is the dialogue. My name is Simapolo. We have Patrick Katabazi. He's an economist and tax policy analyst. We have Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimiri, Member of Parliament for Buyaga West, looking at the 47.2 trillion proposed budget for the financial year 2022-2023. Will it be possible for the projected targets to be achieved or not? And Honorable, talk about the budget and what you think the next financial year will be like, especially as we experience tough economic times today. From the pandemic, now we have commodity prices high, and the cost of living is actually very, very high.
The budgeting for this financial year, I will describe it like you have had somebody who has collapsed and you want that person to be put on life support. You don't have an assurance that that person is going to come up or not. Most likely he will die, or he will just skip there and maybe survive. With what we have gone through and the experiences of what is going on, I am not seeing a major change. I want to agree with the economist when he says I don't see much that is going to happen. Whereas there is we are going to implement the parish development model, whereas they are going to also enhance payment for scientists and maybe implement the administrative units. Provide for the provide for the implementation of administrative units. I am not seeing a major transformation that is going to be caused, particularly on the ground. For me, unlike him, I will not take that the view of economics, statistics. I will take a realistic aspect or a representative aspect. I have been to my constituency, gone to held meetings at villages. Each village, you will find when it has, on average in my constituency, 200 households. Each parish, you will find on average, it has 10 villages. Those are 2,000 households. 2,000 households is where you want to invest 100 million.
In the next financial year.
Yes. Let's say in the next 5 years, we will have 500 million. That's $500 million going to the parish. Going to the parish. Ordinarily, if you subdivided in each household, how much money are you investing in each in each household? Can that money have a serious impact on changing that particular household? Because for me, when I look at what we want to change, the desires of the people that I lead, their desire is to have a decent housing in the household, at the household level. Their desire is to have sufficient food. 3 meals in a day. Their third desire is to have a capacity to educate their family members, to pay fees for the children who are born in the family. From primary one to when they complete their education. Another desire is for them to be able to pay for their medical bills.
True.
To treat themselves in case any of them fell sick. The other desire is for them to have safe water at their home. Instead of carrying jerrycans, going to pick it from far distant places, they would want to at least have capacity to have a tap at their respective homes and make life easier for them. Use the water for domestic purposes, and also
you don't see the parish development model delivering.
I am not seeing I am not seeing the parish development model deliver these to these ordinary people. So the only thing that I am glad he brought it up, that we have emphasized the 100 million, like it's parish financing model. It's parish financing model. The other because every time we talk about parish development model, we bring out the 100 million. But there are also other fundamental things that need to be addressed in this during this program, like mindset change. As he asked, what is the package in this mindset change? I don't want to preempt what the government is going to use in mindset change. But for us as members of parliament, we are ready to provide, to do the appropriation as one of our roles, major roles, to do appropriation. And we don't want the chief executive to say, parliament yane mesa. Did not give it failed me, it did not give me a budget. We are going ahead to give him the budget and see how far he can stretch.
But you must follow.
But with the things that are existing, where you are projecting to collect 25 trillion. This year this financial year they projected to collect 22 trillion. They have had a shortfall already. What magic are they going to do to collect the the 25 trillion. They are certainly going to have a shortfall. Even if okay, they collected the 25 trillion, how much is being used to actually cause the change that we are desiring at the village, at the parish level? Because 18 trillion is being used to pay back the collections.
What we collect.
Yes, 18 trillion.
We use it to pay back the loans.
Yes, maybe this time it will be even 20 trillion being used to pay the what we borrowed. What we borrowed. What will remain is laughable, that it can cause any tangible change in our respective.
But I think in all of this, we must applaud the gesture that this time they have.
Yeah, you may have the gesture.
Wait a minute. That they have not introduced new taxes, and they have pledged not
for
to
them not
increase.
to introduce new taxes is because it's like, how do you try to reap where you have not sown? You introduce a new tax when you have created the tax base. You have not created it. So what are you going to collect, to impose? We expect actually more hard times when we are seeing the donor who was giving us more money that was being invested in development is being cut. Is being cut. Because I think they are also solving their issues at home.
Yeah.
He's not going to abandon his people dying. This is only done here in Uganda, where your children are studying in makeshift classrooms, and you are opening first world schools in Tanzania and Rwanda. That can only be done here, but not in those serious countries. When they were hit by COVID-19, they decided to right size and cut the support. This support they were giving us largely was being invested in development. And that was the condition. So now, even the development we have been seeing is going to reduce. That's why government even backtracked on so many pledges it made to to Ugandans. We've just gotten out of the campaigns, but in the period of 5 years, the pledges that we made to the Ugandans as a political party and a party in the government, at the end of the day, we have not even provided for them in the budget. For instance, in my constituency, government made a pledge since 2009 to construct a road from Muhoro to Ndaiga. But in the 5 years, they have not provided even any figure, even this financial year, regardless of the pressure mounting from the grassroots. And you know, this is the same thing, the same thing to so many. I want to agree with the economist, Katabazi.
In a minute, we have a live update.
That when you have a crisis like this, you try to give attention to serious priorities that may give you an edge. But when you still have in your budget a bigger portion of welfare and entertainment, welfare and entertainment taking the biggest part of your budget, then you cannot tell the world that you are serious at saving Ugandans. And this theme maybe was crafted by but that we want to full monetization of the economy. I don't think that this is going to happen, because already I have told you, if the parish development model will not make our voters get what we said, you tell me how they are going to, how the economy, how they are going to participate in the money economy.
All right. Honorable and our viewers, I request that we get an update right away from Mbarara in just a few minutes, then we come back to the program. Let's link up with Godfrey Tumwebaze. There is an event going on in Mbarara City, and it is about the celebrations of Genome Housing. Let's link up. Tumwebaze Godfrey, you are live on Soul TV and we are in the dialogue. Give us an update.
Okay. Thank you so much to Sime Apollo. Thank you for serving this nation and our guests in the studios. My name is Godfrey Mwebaze. Ngabo yogedde kanzire mu lwe waffe abantu abasinga okutegeera tuli wano mu kibuga eky'Embalala naye nga tuproceedinga okwolekera district ey'Erukunjiri nga bwe mumanyi nti ensi yonna oba mu Uganda n'ebitundu ebirala bagenda maaso n'okubanga bajaguliza wamu bajaguza olwa Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba okuweza emyaka 48. Ekintu kino kyatandika mpola mpola twatandikira wali ku Lugogo Cricket Oval emikolo twagibalaga butelevu ku Soul TV ate ne kijjanga kikula naye mu speech ye yayogera nti okujaguza kuno kutandika butandisi. So n'olunaku olwaleero we tusimbudde okuviira ddala Kampala ne ttiimu enene era nga wano we tuli Lake View Regency Hotel wano mu kibuga eky'Embalala era nga motoka we zisimbye amakande zigenda okusimbira wano okwolekera ekibuga Lukunjiri. Briefly ngenda kubanga mbawaako abamu ku bategesi team chairman tulina ne honorable naye wali angenda kubanga mbawo omukisa guno basobole okubanga batubuulira sofa wano we tuli kiki ekiriwo tula motoka nyingi tulaba stickers tuli ku program gye bayita the dialogue tubeera ne political issues zetwogerako n'ebitambula mu ggwanga so nsaba twogereko omuntu ayagala kumanya kiki ekigenda mu maaso wano era tutuuse wano enteekateeka so kwa beeyonjera amanya then tugende mu maaso n'okumanya biki bye tugenda okubanga tulaga.
Tweyanza nnyo Salt Media abawuliriza n'abalabi ba Salt TV tweyanziza nnyo okutugoberera nze Namuyonga Jackie Agram General Secretary w'ekibiina kya Team Chairman MK Project.
Nga tetunagenda wa honorable soko tubulire wano we tuli tunoonyaawo ki tulaba motoka ziriko stickers za Team MK n'abantu abalaba enjawulo ki ekiriwo.
Tuli wano Mbarara otutuukidde twolekera ekibuga ekya Rukunjiri nga chairman we yabagamba nti emikolo gy'okukuza amazaalibwa ga General mingi mu bitundu ebyenjawulo mu Kampala ne Mirirano and also up country. So Rukunjiri mu kaseera kano yeetegese team chairman n'omwami Kibuuka tutegese emikolo gino. General ayagala nnyo emipiira kusupportinga sports so mwekyo tusazeewo nti yemu emitendera gye tugenda okukozesa okujaguza abavubuka abazeeyi ife n'abeerukunjiri batulinze tugenda celebratinga mu ngeri y'enjawulo nga kwemu ku nkola z'okutegeka amazaalibwa kusanyuka amazaalibwa ga General. So team chairman tutegese emikolo egyo abantu gye bali batulindiridde ebyokulya gye biri biyitirivu ebyokulya endongo gye abayimbi bavudde e Kampala bavudde North bavudde mu Western TV zigenda kwera banange Salt Media mwebale kutugoberera tuli Rukunjiri tugenda kwera ne West Nile everywhere tugenda kuza amazaalibwa ga General ngeri y'enjawulo.
Well, that is it. It's an update from Mbarara City and we are in the dialogue. This is the program. Tusime Apollo and Honorable Barnabas Tinkasimire is in the house and Patrick Katabazi, an economist and a tax policy analyst. Barnabas, Honorable.
Well, I think events happening in the country are attempting to incite us. And I think it is high time Ugandans also staged the rebellion. Because you cannot have a population that is failing to afford soap. And you are choosing to celebrate a birthday for a full month, for 2 months, a birthday. Are you a Ugandan or some foreigner in this country? Ugandans cannot afford soap. In my constituency, people are struggling. The border people. The border people. they can't afford even the fuel to fuel their borders. The families are struggling to feed. Maybe the celebration for the birthday is to give people food. As the catchword you had somebody mobilizing, come to Rukunjiri to go and eat. Will my people come from Mukagadi to go to Rukunjiri to eat?
Honorable, even in tough times, people celebrate those who can.
No. Tough times happened during the time of the French Revolution. People were facing very hard times, but the powers that be by then were just celebrating, throwing parties like the ones you are seeing. They did not care what people are going through. You have seen on the pictures the type of vehicles which are being driven to go to Rukunjiri. It's not our Harriers, no Chikumi over Wish, no. It's real fuel gatherers.
What do you pick now?
For me, I think I am glad the update came when I had just mentioned that the budget we are about to pass still has items like welfare and entertainment to finance such birthdays, to finance things like going to the gym. Where going to the gym could be sometimes progressive because at least people can avoid non-communicable diseases if they exercise. But those that they are subscribing for, they can afford the subscription without government doing it.
Through private engagement.
Yes, they can afford it. They can afford it. And not at this particular time. Not at this particular time. Okay. When we are struggling, the ordinary Ugandan, omuna Uganda, are struggling okuba nemmere awaka. Kusasula fees za mutabaniwe ku university. Mu primary. Now the children are going back to school. Starting with the 9th.
And the schools are actually contemplating increasing school fees.
No, many of them, I can say 80% of the schools have increased school fees. Save for few traditional schools who have said no, they will not increase. They will not increase. But certainly everyone will increase because prices of the commodities they use in schools have also increased. Like fuel, like food. They were buying posho. A kilo of maize was at 800, but now it is at 1,200, 1,400. It has increased. The fuel which they use, it has increased. But all said and done.
Honorable, the budget proposals are still in Parliament. I don't know. I will also ask Patrick. Is it possible now to make some few adjustments?
Now when you bring that one, it is what the people throw in the public. They say because Parliament, its major role is to do appropriation, that we have the power to change. The answer is, I can say 90% no. You may not change because there is even a constitutional provision which says a member of Parliament shall not move a motion on the floor of the House that can increase even a charge on the consolidated fund. When you look at the proposals,
not to eliminate those.
Let me give you a proposal which they are proposed, where you cannot change. You see in our budget they are providing 8 trillion for refinancing. This is money which was borrowed sometime, and because the government is not able to pay, it is saying we shall pay interest on these 8 trillion. 8 trillion. When they bring such an item, what do? Can you change it?
Oh,
because they are not able to pay. Will you say you pay? You can't force them. It is captured as refinancing. Interest. We took the loan, we have to pay the interest. We are paying interest of 5 trillion. When you add this, this 8 plus 5 is coming 13. To 13 trillion. 13 trillion of a budget which you cannot touch.
Yeah.
There are also other items like classified, largely in security. Security has the budget provision of 7.3 trillion. 5 trillion is classified. You can't change it. You cannot touch it.
Okay, let me hear from Patrick. These budget proposals are before Parliament. Is there a way that adjustments can be made to eliminate those areas you've identified as non-priority areas or non-priority funding areas?
No, you have heard from an MP that they are grossly constrained. But also, I think the way we constructed our budget regime, we placed it so much into the hands of the executive more than in the hands of Parliament. So theoretically, they will tell you that Parliament appropriates. But practically, we know that it is the executive that does everything. It tells you about, I think, article, I think it's around 90 there, in the Constitution, that no member of Parliament shall proceed on a motion or bill that inflicts a financial obligation or that has financial implication on the consolidated fund. So it therefore means that if Ministry of Finance determines the resource envelope as being 47 trillion, no member of Parliament can add even 1,000. But what members of Parliament can
they reduce?
What members of Parliament can do, they can look through the budget and make proposals in some areas where we cut from here and put the other side. But the complications that our members of Parliament have is that generally our budget for programs, now we used to call them sectors, the biggest percentage of it is salaries and wages. It is recurrent. Most of the money that we see for development are usually loans and grants that come with the conditionalities. Those that are predetermined, those that ordinarily you will find difficult to change because they are governed by those instruments that give rise to them. So now if you presented, like for example, program on human capital development,
which is the key component.
Yes, is the biggest
budget.
And I'm a proponent of human capital development. But do you know the players in human capital development? Health, education, social development. But in the budget of education alone, you will find that a significant portion of it goes to payment of salaries of what? Of teachers. Health goes to the payment of salaries and wages of teachers. So, and these are also called statutory expenditure. I mean the expenditure that you must meet because it is governed by law. You cannot touch somebody's what? Somebody's salary. So it makes the work of members of Parliament of appropriation extremely difficult. But also there is also the other complication that comes with it. It's true Parliament has a budget office and has a research department, but also the budget process has not been extremely predictable. Why do I say that? Parliament approves the National Budget Framework Paper by 1st of February, according to the Public Finance Management Act. And according to Section 11 and 13 of the Public Finance Management Act, the National Budget Framework Paper is supposed to be a foundational document for the national budget.
Yeah.
But when these guys bring the budget estimates, you will find that they are significantly different from what was approved by members of Parliament.
Yes.
Already that's an area of distortion. Now, you find that once they have submitted the budget estimates, weeks after, they come with a corrigenda. Meanwhile, the committees of parliament are already sitting, interrogating ministerial policy statements, looking at the figures, and now a corrigenda has what? Has come. Another one.
To confirm what he's saying, we in the budget framework paper when it was presented and a report laid, we agreed that agriculture per se, they should put 2 trillion. 2 trillion. And as we talk now, what is available for agriculture is 1.1 trillion. Remember, we passed a budget framework paper providing for 2 trillion. We moved, we provided a budget framework paper for parish development model for 1 trillion. For 1 trillion. What is available as we speak, as of now, is 400 billion. 400 billion. And that is the order of the day. That is the order of the day. So sometimes we ask ourselves, why at the end of the day should an MP carry this cross?
Yes, and of course, thank you for information, Honorable Tinkasimire. This is where Parliament has failed us. Parliament sits and approves the National Budget Framework paper. And they say, you know, you're supposed to be within the resource envelope, and you comply. But you make very, very, very important recommendations and reallocations for social protection, this money for older persons that is never fulfilled every year, in and out, the money for agriculture, and for many other useful commitments that you have talked about. But when the budget estimates come, they are significantly different from what you approved. But then you see it, look at the figures, and you say, let's proceed. And the moment Parliament does not raise a red flag and say, hey, you know, you have laid here these documents, ministerial policy statements, you have laid budget estimates, they are different from what we agreed as Parliament we are taking.
Mr. Katabazi, in 2012, we, in the budget framework paper, we agreed that government is going to provide 300 billion each financial year to the health sector to finance largely the health centers at sub-counties, health center 3.
Yes.
And we even tasked us when the estimates were brought, because the money had not been provided in the budget estimates. We said we will look even in the budget estimates and get the money. We looked at only one element, welfare and entertainment, and were able to get the money. But as we are proceeding to debate, even having gotten the money to fulfill that mandate, the executive insisted that they were to proceed with the estimates. And of course, politics played in. Politics played in, where at the end of the day, members of parliament, some members of parliament were sat down, they agreed to leave the budget the way it was. For us who insisted on a hard line, look for the 300 billions each financial year, we were given the name rebels and subsequently ejected from the NRM party, and we actually retained our seats through serious litigation from High Court, Court of Appeal to Supreme Court. Are you seeing any member in the house there ready to go through the same process to keep his seat or her seat through a litigation of High Court, Court of Appeal to Supreme Court? And even after the Supreme Court, we went for elections. My seat, 1.2 billion, was put on a candidate to defeat me. I did not have money. I was only saved by ordinary Ugandans, my voters, who said, Barnabas has suffered for us. But I was really battered.
Patrick, Patrick, let's
I was really battered.
So let's close this.
Let's close
Yes.
on this topic.
Members of Parliament should know that the moment they do not pass proper budget, the burden shifts on them. Whoever gets sick, they run to a member of what?
MPs.
Of Parliament.
Whoever wants school fees, whoever gets hungry, whoever is in Kampala and gets stuck, they call who?
The MP.
Yet ordinarily, members of Parliament have a golden opportunity to cause the change that is so desired.
Okay.
I can tell you, the way we have constructed the budget, like for example, I know of a ministry and a department where they have pre-qualified a service provider to provide cakes for birthday and other gifts. That every staff who has a birthday, it's a government of Uganda that pays.
Right.
And the government of Uganda here, I mean we the people. And I think it is something we need to change. We need to be very frugal in using our public resources. We need to be very, 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 very cautious that this money that we are spending would ordinarily transform lives of an ordinary citizens. And perhaps maybe, I don't know whether it is too late, but we also need to educate, use the change agents like Honorable Tinka Simiri, to educate members of Parliament that if they fold their arms, it is them to pay. You know how much it is now to be a member of Parliament.
All right.
Extremely, extremely, extremely expensive.
Thank you. Thank you so much, viewers. This is the dialogue. We are still moving on, but let's quickly get another update. Let's quickly get another update. Godfrey Mwebaze, you are live. Let's hear from you what actually is happening.
But it was fun. It was fun. It was fun.
Okay, Apollo, as you discuss about 47 trillion budget draft, the nation is wondering that
I'm coming.
why all this money that is being spent to celebrate the birthdays of Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. And that is the question that has been trending almost after his official function at Rugogo Cricket Oval. But right here with me, I have Honorable Kangwa, and of course I will automatically go to him and ask him, as the honorable member of Parliament, why should the country continue spending all that money? We want to know.
Well, the signal looks not to be very clear, but we will link up with them. Honorable Kangwaji, one of those people.
Yeah. Honorable Tinka Simiri, Parliament. If there is anything concerning Parliament, it is just on his fingertips. I don't think that he can be in studios and he arranges that the 13 trillions are for this without, let me ask, without even giving an evidence or an example that it was on this vote. If there is any evidence, put it on table. And if you want to treat it as an allegation, then it is an allegation. This one is purely for an individual. And Ugandans, the individuals have decided to sit down and show love to their brother. Nothing else. Because as government, as Parliament, if there is anything you want to pass, as in far as budget is concerned, you must show a cause, and that vote must be displayed. If it is not there, treat it as an allegation, please.
Okay, as a Ugandan, as a voter, I may ask, we see the prices of the commodities, they are going high every day and now. But when, of course, we see this function is happening, even though you are saying it's the community, the public that is reacting, that is showing love to General, a common person may ask himself if it is true.
Yes, much as the prices of some commodities are going up. But good enough, you know what is happening in the group. This is not here in Uganda alone. To be realistic, the other day we were in the caucus, of which my brother, Senior Honorable Tinka Simir, is part. And party, because he is a member of parliament under NRM. When we were in the caucus, we were with him. The president came straight on that particular point for us to sit, contemplate, discuss, and pave a way forward on how we can be in position, cooperate with other neighboring countries, because Uganda is a landlocked country, on how they can really help us and see on some commodities, on how we can reduce on those things. But he said that
that is Honorable Kangwaji speaking from Mbarara City, and of course that is a reaction.
And I always tell people, the land or we have here in Uganda, it is totally not good. We need to sit and say, if it is good for us as Ugandans, let us be there. For instance, the other day the president sent the prime minister to go to Sangobe, of which that land is for government, but people encroached on it. And we have decided to say, no, enough is enough. This land is for government. We have decided to put palm trees. Those palm trees are for what? To get materials that make soap and other materials, so that we can get rid out of this challenge we are facing. Okay. Yes.
So thank you so much. Before I let you go, maybe your special message that goes to Lieutenant General Mhozi Kainerugaba as we celebrate his birthday, beside putting the other one aside.
I want to really to wish my brother a happy birthday, and we pray that God should continue keeping him, guiding him, because he has totally done his part. He has managed to provide, he has managed to sacrifice for the good of Ugandans. And that's why Ugandans have come out strongly, also to show him that really they do appreciate for what he did. Those are the reasons as to why Ugandans, whether you have money, whether you don't have, but for you have love, your love will never die. And that's why that love is always coming up, exhibited, portrayed, whether in the middle of the road, whether you're on the sea, whether you are where, Mhozi is everywhere. Reason being, General Museveni and the party, NRM, it seems they have done something great for the good of Ugandans, and they will never let him down. Thank you.
So, Honorable, your constituency, abantu benda kumanya nochichira chikawata bukawagambe bugamba bugomere.
Tintabukire no kushemerwa no oshemererwa wena. Nabasana kukwiha musati. Kwanganyenda kumanyisa ngo environment iturumu ninga shembere iturumu Museveni na government yije ya NRM bakhereza eminyeto busingi kureba eminyeto ino bugambiro abacyara nkabari yo kumcyara rukusha n'abamuzeyire iwaho rutor kwirkanga no hurekere Russia jeru Ukraine, but for us Uganda yabereriyensi yempunyi erutware empunyi hati niyo kwakira empunyi, it's a great achievement. Me nabanyeta kangwagerwa kanuma Stephen, member of parliament of Bukanga constituency in Isinjiro. I to in Empunji, 52 countries as you Kuwait, Libya, Africa, Sudan. You can imagine we still have Sudanese here. To in Somalia. You know what is happening in Somalia? For us, we export peace. The other time we used to import peace, people to come and protect us. But this time we export. You can imagine. Really, we need to thank President Museveni and NRM. Those are the reasons as to why the youth have said enough is enough. Whatever what, come rain or shine, General Mhozi is our own.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Kangwaje. Allow me, please, I take you back to the studio. That was his submission, according to what you were asking and what you are discussing about. Sime Apollo, I'm back to the studio, and of course we are proceeding from here up to Lukunjiri. God bless you. Back to the studio.
Thank you. Thank you so much, our viewers, and that's the city as the convoy proceeds to Lukunjiri. Honorable, that is Honorable Stephen Kangwaji Rakanuma. You sit in Parliament together. A quick response, and we conclude this show with a comment on the issue of commodity prices and how government has handled it.
Well, when you see such a member of parliament submitting, you ask yourself, was he actually voted by the people? or he bought his way to parliament. Me, I was voted by the people. This is my 4th term being voted by the people. And I speak without fear or favor. Whether you are a son of the president, whether you are the commander of the armed forces, I will tell you, bullshit. Ugandans are struggling to survive. You are celebrating birthdays. Why can't you channel that money to at least the cause? Actually, we should dismiss these guys. Why don't they at least rally behind, get an item like epilepsy, and say we are going to construct a hospital for epilepsy, and he moves with that agenda other than his birthdays, celebrating when people are in this crisis.
Honorable,
he's talking about commodity prices. The president,
let's evaluate the response from government.
The president,
in relation to high commodity prices,
asked the prime minister to go to Sangobe to see whether they can grow more palm oil, oil trees. I want to even ask him, did he ask what happened to the money that we invested in as a public investment in Bidiko for the production or for planting of for the production of crude palm oil?
Palm oil in Kalangala Islands.
They chose to plant few acreage and use the part of the money to keep importing. Currently, they are producing, according to Minister of Finance statistics, they are producing 17%. 83% is still being imported. Was this the arrangement? Have we just seen it? Because the money was provided a long time ago. Was provided for those 2 projects, Bidiko and sunflower growing in northern Uganda. But what is going on? They chose to use the money to do an importation because that's where they have the kir. They have the kir. Now they are fooling Ugandans that the products we are using to manufacture soap, to manufacture your cooking oil, we are importing them. Where is the money that we provided to do an investment? To do an investment to produce these things locally?
So Honorable, has the response been adequate? The Ministry of Finance is saying it cannot either give tax.
For me, this response, which I do not want, is where every minister who comes says in Kenya they are also doing badly. For me, I want you to tell us, because you are a minister of finance of Uganda, not a minister of finance of Kenya. Not a minister of finance of Tanzania, not a minister of finance of Rwanda. Tell us what you are going to do for Ugandans, because we are the ones you are administering. I want the president to come with a proposal for Ugandans, not for Kenyans. Not for Kenyans. And then we discuss
what came out of that meeting, the NRM caucus meeting you had last week?
Largely the NRM caucus that came was largely to discuss the coffee agreement. These ones were by the way. And when this idea was introduced, and members of parliament, Renmad started his shouting at the president. The meeting became rowdy and uncontrollable. The meeting was adjourned. That's what happened in Kololo, and people should report precisely what happened. These other issues were just to set the stage for this particular discussion. When this discussion did not take place, the other ones were abandoned. No concrete resolution that was made.
Honorable Patrick, I want you to evaluate the response of government on the issue of commodity prices. NRM caucus sat, and you've had responses from the Ministry of Finance. Is it really adequate? Because it looks like now it has been left to the market forces. What is happening in the economy has been left until maybe the parish development board comes in and the things the economy sorts itself out?
Okay, so it's we are in a very challenging circumstances, but I want also to state that General Moses is my friend, and I wish him the very best, and on his birthday particularly. And Honorable Tinkasimile, I don't know whether he is sponsoring the rest of other celebrations across the country, but I think some of them are self-help initiatives, and maybe I would implore them to take on your advice that they could also, alongside eating and merrymaking, identify certain
No,
projects.
many Ugandans today,
So that-
as we open the term next term, many Ugandans will not be able to pay fees. For instance, the money that was paid was spent at Lugogo. Why can't you wake up and say, I am announcing that give me the bills of those parents who are going to fail to pay for their children, and I pay?
There will be many.
Yes, so
That is the crisis.
yes, so
Ali nga tukudalira.
Yes, so Honorable Tinkasimile, I think now we also don't go into impossibilities. But I think the team could also be innovative, and also look at causes one or the other. But I think these are largely self-help driven celebrations, but they could also pick a few innovations to make it more relevant, more exciting, and the like. But I wish the General a very happy birthday and many fruitful years ahead. On the commodity prices, we are in a crisis. There's no doubt about that. When you go to my home village in Rwamchuchu, in Ruchiga, you find that a bar of soap, whereas it has moved to about 8,000 here, there are some places where it is 10,000, 12,000. And we think for an ordinary citizen, that is extremely high. The fuel, of course, has run out of hand. Now we had taken solace in the fact that diesel wasn't going as high, but now it is almost out competing petrol. And we think this is something that...
Do you see that the government has anything to do or anything it can do?
Now there are certain things that the government is doing. Number one, it has put out a statement. For me, that's a positive step in the right direction. Assuring people that, hey, look here, this is what is happening. For soap and cooking oil, this is where the problem, where the problem is. Secondly, for oil prices, they have also been very clear on where the problem is. But again, I would love to see government taking a step and also doing the following. Number one, we have real prices, but we also have artificial prices. Where are the artificial prices coming in? People taking advantage of the situation that we have. And that is where we should see a strong arm of government.
Can government do it in a liberal economy?
Yes, like in a liberal economy, government does it. UK is a liberal economy as an example. USA is a liberal economy. Kenya is a liberal economy. But they have, for example, like the Competitions Commission that guards against anti-competition. People undercutting others to create pressure. Like, for example, when the first time of the oil crisis here, petroleum crisis, where we have a disruption at the border, you know what people are doing? People were hoarding. And because everybody was doing the same, so they will release. So you find a petrol station saying that they have petrol or petroleum products at 9, but then they will tell you at 11 there's no fuel, but then you hear at 3 there is fuel. All those are anti-competition practices, but because they also know that everybody else is doing the same and is making a kill, they are also forced to join. But who loses? An ordinary person.
So in your opinion, Patrick,
so in my opinion,
government should have done some few things, but it hasn't done.
Yes, beyond propagating a free market economy, we must also be aware that we are not dealing with only good guys, especially when it comes to making money. There are people with ulterior motives, and that's why a competitions authority should come into place. Very strong consumer protection mechanisms should also be put in place. And I also want to say
our time is running out, just in 1 minute.
Yes. So I also want to say that also government should take keen interest in listening and learning, because the disruptions that are in the world market and our challenges that we are facing arising out of COVID, the prices are likely to rise in the medium term. I mean, I don't think they are going to go down anytime soon. But also the other problem that we have, that even when the situation gets corrected, the prices remain high. That's also a consumer protection issue that we need to start looking out. Because ultimately, if we don't, then we will be taking 10 steps forward and 17
do legislators like Honorable Barnabas have anything to do?
They have something to offer. And one of the things they need to do is they need to summon the Minister of Finance and other government agencies and demand for action. Minister of Trade, if we have soap and oil going up, what strategies are you putting in place? Barnabas, because we know soap is being produced in some of our communities. People can be empowered to make.
We only have 1 minute.
Local soaps and
wind up
things
your,
like that.
your final comment.
I think largely we should accept that there is a problem with this government. Because if we have soap coming from Kenya, is being sold to Ugandans at a cheaper price than the soap which is manufactured by Bidco. For them, do they produce the products that make the soap? The answer is they also import them. They also import them. You are going to say at a cheaper price. Yes, because they are not landlocked. But when you put the production and exporting it to Uganda, it should be either at the same price or even higher, relatively higher. Relatively high, but it is cheaper. It is 5,600, 400. Ours is coming to 10,000 above soap.
Honorable.
So largely,
your final statement, Honorable.
My final statement is that the people we put in charge of this government to think for it, particularly the chief executive and his cabinet, should sit, because they are hired for that. They are hired for that every day, to think of things that can work for this country and fix these problems. He has given you an example. Those are some of the things which they can handle. They are not ready to invest in some money to stabilize.
All right. Thank you so much, our viewers. Our time is fast spent. This
time is so
is the
short.
dialogue.
Time is so short for this kind
But thank you so much, Patrick, for your time.
The pleasure is mine all the time.
Thank you, Honorable, for your time.
Thank you, sir.
And our viewers, thank you so much. We didn't get time to look at your comments on our social media platforms and elsewhere. But thank you so much for staying with us for all these 2 hours. My name is Simapolo. The dialogue will be back next Saturday. I must say, good afternoon and enjoy your weekend.
All views and opinions expressed in this program do not reflect or state those of Salt Media and its management. These are views of the guests. Soul Television, Femunyo.